Today's video is a very small haul, y'all. Welcome, welcome. All right, let's get started right away by checking out the first stuff. I wanted to get some new colors because I'm trying to round out my Sennelier palette that I recently purchased. And if you've seen my last few videos, I've been using this and absolutely loving it. These watercolors are unlike any I've ever used before, and they have become my go-to watercolors for portraits. I also am in the process of learning how to paint loose florals, given the background of these paints as being tremendously useful for adding many layers. They have a very unique formula that allows for the painter to layer and layer and layer without the risk of anything becoming muddy or dull. And I've experimented ad nauseum with the paints over the last 3 weeks since I started using them, and I'm more and more sure of their capabilities each time I use them. So what I noticed was the 18 colors that I received in my original palette were leaning mostly toward the brighter colors, reds, blues, and yellows naturally, our triads, which is wonderful for portraiture and really anything, but there weren't a ton of the grungier, deeper kind of colors. I was missing that a bit. So I decided to get a yellow, a green, and then what I perceive as Sennelier's version of Daniel Smith's Buff Titanium, which is this warm gray color. And you'll see me swatch these out and use them shortly. I did want to show you the technique that I use whenever I buy paints that have a usable label that can be applied to the half pan. I use these glue dots and just apply the outer packaging because it contains all the information and it saves me from having to write on the pans with Sharpie. I had done this with my first Paul Rubens palette 4 years ago when I first bought it, and those labels are still very readable despite me using that palette for over a year every day. Anytime I clean up the palette, I just take the pans out and wipe each pan down and the label stays on. Now, if any of you saw my swatching YouTube's least talked about brand, you will have seen the way that I like to swatch out new paint colors. So that's what we're doing here. And these cards have gone in with my other cards. It just kind of gives me each color in mass tone and watered down, provides me with some information about the color's transparency or opacity, and it also lets me see at a glance whether it's a single pigment color, and if not, what the different pigments are that go into it, that sort of thing. So that's what we're looking at here, and I'll insert a clip of the key card that goes along with this in case you're wanting to see how to read this, though I'm sure it's probably pretty obvious. A quick note, since this is a haul, the art tools printed for you, that's the template I ordered from Etsy, and if you are interested in that particular Etsy shop, I will link it below. Just let me know. If I forget, let me know in the comments and I will share it with you. Here, let's swatch out this warm gray. It is an opaque Series 1 color by Sennelier, and it consists of PW6, PY42, PBK11, and PR101. So 4 different pigments, which can be something you need to consider when you are looking to mix this with other colors. Just be aware that that does increase the likelihood that you might get muddy colors. However, with Sennelier, that likelihood is way lower than with any other brand. On the screen at the beginning of the video, I had my palette covering a portrait that I had done in my sketchbook, which we talked about in another video that I'll link here. A portrait where I had literally pushed the colors as far as I could to see what it would take to create a muddy skin tone. And I did achieve the muddy skin tone, but it took a lot. So it's much less of a risk with this brand. Right now, you're watching me swatch Olive Green, which is a transparent kind of olive green. Looks like an olive, straight up. It's not rated as far as light fastness goes, and it contains PY 150, PG 36, and PBR 23. And that just adds to the relative grungierness, but there's tremendous clarity nonetheless. The third color I got, because it was highly recommended in the comments of the Sennelier swatching video, is Yellow Lake, a Series 1 transparent single pigment color with a very good light fast rating. And you can see that it resembles an Indian yellow. It has that nice sort of depth and almost like that mustardy vivid yellow tone to it, but when it's watered out, it becomes almost a neon yellow. I showed you my water jar because it looks like vitamin P to me. Does it look like vitamin P to you? You know, when you've taken all your B vitamins and everything and then you pee, that's exactly the color of it. Our next item is the Saunders Waterford St. Cuthbert's Mill 100% cotton sketchbook. It's known as the Fat Pad. All right, so looking at this Fat Pad, you can see that the front cover is extremely thin. It's the thickness of a standard piece of paper, not even as thick as a piece of watercolor paper. It also has a thick cardboard backing, and the spiral for the binding isn't super sturdy. That's okay though, because this was chosen by me on purpose. See here, I'm comparing it with my Speedball watercolor journal that I briefly reviewed just after purchasing it in another video, and I really love it. The watercolor paper in it is by Fluid, and I had never used that before, and I'm very much enjoying it. In fact, I prefer it to the Arches paper I've used in the past. Have you guys noticed that Arches smells bad? I realized I needed two different watercolor sketchbooks. The one by Speedball, given how sturdy it is and that it's bound like an actual book, this is my go-to sketchbook, the one I take with me everywhere, the one I put all different kinds of art in and use it for everything. The reason I got the Fat Pad Saunders Waterford sketchbook is because I wanted a portfolio. I wanted a book where I could put my best work, where I could put only portraiture, and it would still be experimental to some degree, but with the goal of using it to exemplify the passion work, my passion projects, the things that I pour my heart into, my loose portraits, my loose florals with loose portraits, that kind of work. So that's what that is for. And I will be showing you some of the work from that book and probably me creating a portrait in the next video next week. Let me show you quickly the one piece I've already done in the book just to test it out. And I'm thrilled with it. Saunders Waterford paper is my absolute favorite of all time. So I'm not surprised that I love the paper. It's exactly the same as what is on the watercolor block. It's just in a portable fashion. So this next item is not watercolor related, except that I met this lovely artist who created these pieces because of her love for watercolor and art creation and mine. If you look back at this video, I'll put it in the eye. It was about a year ago that I put this video out, and my call to action in the video was if anyone wanted to share their artwork or their passion projects with me on the channel, I wanted to share those with the community here. And only one person in the history of this channel has ever taken me up on that. And that person was Susan Dove, who I've now created a very close friendship with. I've talked about her in a number of my other videos. And she now has a YouTube channel, which is called Creative Solutions Art. And I have linked it below. And she happens to make wire wrap jewelry, and it is stunning. I asked her if she could make me a few pieces with a stone and a cross. And she made these two beautiful pendant necklaces for me. The purplish one is called, the stone is called celestite or angelite. And the brownish golden one is tiger's eye. They are wire wrapped with copper core wire that has a non-tarnish coating on it. And the crosses in these are stainless steel, as are the chains. Now, the craftsmanship is tremendous on these necklaces. I've had them now for many months, and I wear them often for days and days at a time, and one or the other of them, sleep in them, wear them to work at the hospital. I often forget to take them off, and they've not tarnished. The links of the chains haven't tangled up with my hair, which is a problem I have with almost every other necklace I've ever owned. They're just absolutely unique and beautiful and so sturdy, as you can see from the different clasps and mechanisms. So I would highly encourage you, if you're interested in this kind of jewelry, definitely reach out to Susan on her channel. She'll respond to all your comments, and you can talk with her about what you'd like to order and pricing and that sort of thing. But I'll tell you, they were extremely affordable. In fact, too affordable, I told her. She needs to increase her prices dramatically because these are works of art and they're wearable. What more could you want? So thank you, Susan, for these beautiful pieces. And I would love to buy again from you in the future and plan to. The next thing we're going to talk about is my acquisition of 2 tiny brushes. I needed watercolor brushes that were small enough to create eyelashes and to really get into the teeny tiny details on the eyes, because that's where I really like to play up the details. The eyes and the mouth are my favorite parts to paint. I love painting teeth also, and all of those things need tiny little brushes. And while I own a few small brushes, they weren't doing it for me in the way I needed. They were more of a hindrance to me than a help when I was painting. The portrait that I created in this video that I'll put in the eye had eyelashes, and they came out looking not so good. And as a result, I asked in the comments if anyone could advise me about different brushes to buy. And I did receive a lot of advice. Most people said to get synthetic brushes, and that was my plan. But when I was looking on Amazon at the Silver Brush store, when I was looking at the script liner brushes, I realized that I did want something that was partially natural hair, because I knew that would help with water holding capacity, and it would prevent me from having to re-dip in the paint so many times. I was also looking, and I noticed that they had a tiny Kolinsky sable brush, and I am not made of money, so I don't own any of these brushes except this teeny tiny one, which was extremely affordable. It was like $10 because it's so tiny, but it has been an absolute blessing. I've used this brush 20 times since I've bought it, and the kind of detail it allows me to get is extremely helpful. It still carries quite a bit of pigment and water, even though it's absolutely dainty. And between the two, I've found various different uses for both. I'm going to try to demonstrate some of the ways I've used these brushes now, but I would certainly say if you're doing a lot of tiny detail work, whether it's these brushes in particular or a different script liner brush, even synthetic brush, they are a must for your work. And I can't believe that I have gone so long without owning either of these sort of brushes. They're extremely affordable, around $10 per brush, but very well made. So those are just some of my thoughts. And I super hope you enjoyed this haul. I don't often do art hauls. I try to use my supplies for absolutely as long as I can before replacing them. But I realized I did have some holes, some significant holes in my collection of supplies. One being increasing the Sennelier paints I have at my disposal for ongoing portraiture, since this is the only paint I will be using for facial features. So those will continue to come, and I will continue to review them as they are ordered from time to time. You've now seen probably the last of my sketchbooks for about a year. I don't suspect I'll need any new brushes either. So I hope you enjoyed the haul. And if you would like to subscribe, that would mean a lot. It's free, it helps me out, and it lets you know when I put new videos out, though you'll see one about every week. And finally, if you liked the video, I hope you'll click the like button, and I will see you in the next one. Have an absolutely beautiful day, you guys. Bye-bye.